So my name is Vanessa Johnston. I am an end-of-life doula in the Denver area. I'm the owner of Denver EOL Doula LLC, and I'm also the co-founder and vice president of membership for the Colorado End-of-Life Collaborative. The collaborative was started in 2020 by 5 end-of-life doulas, and we were looking to create a community for professional end-of-life providers. And so we have 2 directories on our website that I'd encourage you to check out. We have a directory of doulas. I believe we're up to 15 now. Very exciting. And then we also have affiliate providers, affiliate members, and we have 23 of those. And Ben Martin is one of our affiliate members in the collaborative. We're just really looking to have in one place all the things that somebody might need if they were themselves experiencing palliative or hospice care, or if a loved one was. Because we know that as you're grieving, it's hard to make decisions and hard to really think of all the things that you need to do. So we really wanted to have it all in one place for people and have people that we could refer to, that we trusted, and that we knew were really compassionate providers who focused on empowerment of the individual at end of life and really helping folks where they were. So that's what the Colorado End of Life Collaborative is about. Please check out our website if you're curious. But now I want to talk more about one of our affiliate members, Ben Martin, who is here to talk about personalized life celebrations. So Ben is a certified life cycle celebrant through the Celebrant Foundation and Institute, specializing in funerals, weddings, and ceremonies across the life cycle. So through the years, Ben has shown a talent for crafting inspirational ceremonies and celebrations tailored to the unique needs of his audience. Ben has been a writer by vocation and avocation for the last 42 years and brings a refined voice and creativity to each ceremony. In 2017, he published Prayers on the Road Home. He is a grandfather to 15 grandchildren, ages 8 months to 17. He serves as an interfaith minister for a small spiritual community. Ben loves hiking, racquetball, tennis, chips and salsa, and telling bad granddad jokes. So we are so thrilled to have Ben here tonight for this presentation. And just a couple of housekeeping things before I hand it over to you, Ben.
Sure.
Valerie Nicholas is here as well. She is another vice president of the Colorado End of Life Collaborative. She is also an end of life doula and a celebrant like Ben. She's going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So if anybody has questions for Ben, just put them in the chat box and we'll cover those at the end. And then other than that, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Ben. And thank you everyone for being here.
Great. Well, it's a privilege, and I have such respect for everyone that's on this call and for what you've signed up to do and to be. And I hope that this is of value to you, and I look forward to kind of giving you my take on things when it comes to ceremonies. So why personalized ceremonies matter? The first way, I always like to start off with a virtual hug. So I invite everyone to grab your shoulders. I can't see everyone. That's okay. You don't have to put your video on if you don't want us to see that you haven't done your hair or put your makeup on yet. That's okay. But just grab your arms anyway and beam a hug to everyone that you can see. I just think that's where we got to start. And that's how I start all my virtual ceremonies, by the way. So, and you could tell me later. I'd love to hear from you if this metaphor works for you. But what does it feel like to lose your connection? A megastorm blows into town, and first the lights flicker on and off, and then go off completely. And there you are in the dark. You realize you've lost communication with the world. You have no internet. Your cell phone is dead with no way to recharge, and your landline is down until power returns. And then, as the chill settles into the room, you realize you have no heat and you have no water since your well is powered by an electric pump. You are literally powerless and suddenly quite isolated. Well, hopefully the power will return soon, but in the meantime, no light, no water, no heat, no phone, no internet, no connection. Well, that works in my mind as to what does it feel like to lose your connection in your community. A great loss occurs in your life. You have a death in the family. Your emotions flicker, and suddenly you are shut down with grief and shock. And you are feeling the effects of being powerless in the face of tough reality, of death. Hopefully you'll find a way to let the light in, as well as the equivalents of water and heat and communication soon, and hopefully a communal source of support. But I think that's what ceremony is about, is building connections. And we're in such a profane society that we're just ready to toss out all celebrations that give meaning to milestone moments that matter. And of course, the passing of our loved ones, and just letting them go by with a quick nod or toast or whatever, and not really giving them the chance to connect. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Well, since 2016, I, as a life cycle celebrant, have done over 150 funerals, memorials, and life celebrations. And I can tell you that there's a palpable change in the chemistry in the room, where a ceremony taps the very personal and the very essence of the person. And I can feel when that connection happens and the grip of grief loosens a bit. Those in attendance connect to their loved one, often with a bit of humor, and they connect with each other. And when the decedent is brought to life in the room, so to speak, people start nodding in recognition and saying, I know that person. That's it. Yes, that is the friend, our spouse I knew. And the people in the room light up with a reconnection, because they're connecting with the person that they've lost. There's something in that recognition, in that re-knowing, in the connection, that is healing and cathartic. And I don't know enough of neurology, and I wish I did, of what it gets released in the brain when you make a connection. But I know that it lights the brain up, and I know that it connects to the person that was lost, and that in kind of a play on words, it sort of lightens the load a bit of what a person is experiencing in a ceremony. Far too often, and I was one of these, so I guess I can't be too judgmental. So many choose to stoically go on without taking the time to connect into a communal source of power. As one client said about losing his wife to cancer, I was just planning on a couple of beers in her honor and call it good. I knew she didn't want me to do anything, but his son intervened and insisted they do something. But I thought myself, why put all that money on me? I'm gone. I'm dead. Don't bother. Spend it on something else that's important to you. And yet, the husband followed up his statement with, in so many remarkable ways, this ceremony has helped me to let my love and my best friend go to a better place. And that's transformative. Here are a couple of other actual examples of people who've come back to me at the with their thoughts on the ceremony. The Rose Tribute with the grandsons, the beautifully written poems, and special Jackie recipe cards gave the ceremony a special touch. We appreciate all you contributed to make this a comforting way to bring closure to her life here and release her to a new one. Well, I'm not a big one to subscribe to closure in a ceremony. I don't really think that's what happens, but I do think it moves you along in the process with your grief and with your with where you are at with that loved one. You created a beautiful tribute to Mom that I will remember for a long time to come. Somehow you turned an unbearable slice of time into a warm, safe place to be. Wow, I love that. That meant a lot to me to hear. So, a personalized ceremony with meaningful rituals is designed to be transformative and personal, to give potent significance to a life that was such a presence. So in the first picture is an earth altar that was in honor of a gentleman who died way too soon, but loved nature. And we built an altar in his honor, and everyone then took away a pine cone in honor of the seed packet that was stored in a pine cone for like future seeds from his life. We did a tree planting in honor of someone who'd opted to do the body composting way of disposition of the body. Can help a grieving spouse, parent, or friend find a safe place to tell their loved one's story and embrace fond memories. And in this picture is just a kind of a collection of things that telegraph the things that really called out this person in their life. He was a farmer. He loved to walk. He was 102 when he died, and he died walking. He was every day he would take a mile walk, and he was alert and beautifully integrated into the world that he lived in. So anyway, it's a life worthy of celebrating. Well, Robin Wall Kimmerer, I don't know if you know of her. She wrote Braiding Sweetgrass and something about moss, but I can't quite think of what the title of it is. But she said in Braiding Sweetgrass, ceremonies transcend the boundaries of the individual and resonate beyond the human realm. These acts of reverence are powerfully pragmatic. These are ceremonies that magnify life. I love that. I think all about magnifying life. I feel like we magnify violence by putting our focus and our magnifying glass on our shootings and on our outbreaks and on the anger and on the lowest common denominator. I won't get political, but I don't think it does us any good. But if we can magnify a life that has something worthy for us to take away and to honor and to give honor to, what a beautiful opportunity it is, and the right thing, I think, to do. Well, community is not a geography, but it's a connection, a shared juncture, a connected series of milestone moments. And to let those milestone moments just go, whether it's coming of age or baby welcomings or graduations or weddings, and especially life celebrations, I think is we're missing out. And to paraphrase Muriel Reyes, or I don't know that I'm saying her name right. Sorry, Muriel. That community is not made of atoms. Community is made of stories. And the most damning response to a fill in the blank ceremony is it could have been anybody. They couldn't even pronounce her name right. And so not all ceremonies are equal, and those that are templated and fill in the blank and have nothing personalized and don't have that recognition that lights up a brain when it sees something it recognizes as true and authentic, then it is even worse than if you did a ceremony. But on the other hand, as one client said of a personalized ceremony for her mom, the skillful gathering of stories, information, images, and readings created a memorial for my mom that no one expected to feel as comforting or as uplifting as our memorial did. And you could challenge that. It didn't bring her mom back to life. It didn't change the fact that her mom was dead. It didn't change that she had this hollow hole of grief, and yet was comforted and uplifted by way of ceremony. My favorite compliment is when an attendee comes up to me and says, "How did you know Mary?" And of course, I just met Mary maybe 3 days ago when I met with the family in an interview with them and really got to know Mary, but nothing before that. So personalized ceremonies are magical, and they surprise attendees with what a source of comfort and uplift they can be. They are our antidote to feeling isolated, alienated, and removed. They are our way of reconnecting into a community of support and can restore our power source and build and light us up with the love that we feel for them. These ceremonies are pragmatic, and they magnify life. Well, I bring you this poem of mine, and it goes, how does it go? I've made it too small for me to read, but you can see it. In this, our collective goodbye, there is an alchemy of remembrance, a remixing of memories. I apologize. Distilled down to what was most your essence. We have called out where we have loved you, where we have laughed with you, where we have had fun with you, and we have mixed it with the fire of our tears that now burn with loss, with regret, with the breathtaking, literally, mystery of death. From the alchemy of remembrance, we experience a renewed intimacy with each other, with those who have left us long ago, and of course with you, who was here one day and then gone, but not gone, the next, as you are still here among us. And in your death, the reaffirmation that love is forever, bridging where we have been with where we are arriving. O heart of our souls, may we learn to live as whoever you're doing a tribute for, in this instance, Lee, who I did just today, as Lee lived with such joy in life, with such love of projects, with being of service to others, and with such a compassionate heart. May we sing this day while there is still breath. May we dance this day while there is still music. May we embrace this day while there is still joy. Lee, blessings and much love on your departure. Lee, blessings and much love on your arrival. So anyway, I hope that captures a little bit of what I think happens in the room is an alchemy. I thought I'd give you an example of a ceremony that has a lot of the traditional elements of a service, an opening, a welcome, a blessing, a closing, but was totally personalized. And it's for an individual named Sheila. She was 54, a mother of two, an outdoor enthusiast. She was a volunteer for Hot Quest. And um, so after my take on her was after listening in to the remarkable life of Sheila, I've come to the conclusion that Sheila was all about wings, teaching others about wings, how your own life can take wing, how you offer yourself to be the wind beneath other people's wings. And so that kind of set the stage for um, for the ceremony. I spent maybe more like 2 hours with the family, but I said 1.5. I guess I didn't want to admit how long it took to learn to know Sheila and to come up with what we were going to go after. And I knew that from out of our ceremony, the program was revealing some of her loves of her life: horses, ocean life, raptors, her family. And then we did this personalized story table that include eagle feathers and smudge stick and Indian. I'm going to move my screen just a little bigger. Don't be mad. Here we go. So I can stop squinting. So it had on it had eagle feathers and a smudge stick, an Indian flute because she really connected with Native American, horse items, camera, VW bus because she traveled a lot with the VW bus, T-shirt, camera, stone, protective arm sheath with an eagle on it, where that was what she would wear when she would release the raptors. Iconic pictures with her girls, with hawks, with dandelion gone to seed, because she loved that. She loved the beach. She loved beach items, crystals, Christmas angel, hat, and special rocks. So something very personal and all about Sheila that instantly telegraphed who she was and what she was about in her 54 years. We did an order of ceremony, and yeah, it had a lot of the same elements. You might have a welcome and introduction, but it had an opening prayer that someone else did, had some different rituals that were in there, different music, different speakers, and really set the stage with the theme of wings. And that's what I try to do as a life cycle celebrant, is kind of mine the life for what's the theme? What is, if there was an essential oil to this person, what would that smell like? What would that feel like? What is that distillate of Sheila that can, instantly connect to everyone that's in the room? As you know, Sheila was well known as a volunteer for Hot Quest, where she helped people understand the uniqueness and beauty of wings, be they eagles, red-tailed hawks, owls, or the like. And I think if she had a spirit animal, it just might be a Pegasus, a horse which she loved, with wings which she loved. And then there's the meaning behind the name Sheila, suggesting wings as its Latin origins mean heavenly or of the heavens. We are here today to celebrate Sheila's indomitable heavenly spirit, her taking on new wings for her spirit, and frankly, to release her so she can fly free of any pain or of any regret. As the Hot Quest Facebook page said, to be a part of Sheila's world was to be in a space touched by the fire of a passionate spirit, the compassion of a huge heart, the determination of a mother bear, and the flightiness of a magical spirit. Well, let's celebrate that magical spirit. And that led us into just where we went from there. I won't belabor this, but the family had wanted me to read us kind of I thought of a opaque scripture from the Old Testament that was about the seraphim, but they had wings. And so it really gave me a launching point to kind of weave in something that the family really wanted to have read and to tie it into her theme of wings. And then when we did a candle lighting, the mom and the daughters came forward along with a grandchild, and we lit a candle of to her of how fun things seemed when she was in the room, how good she could make us feel, how undaunted she was by the tough times that came her way. She had some tough times, and she had an early addiction issue with alcohol that she was able to come free of and to find her wings after having gone some really dark times. And then we gave gratitude for her times past, her effervescent spirit, for the home she created, for her unflagging energy and passion for great outdoors, for her love of horses and raptors and of all God's creatures. And one of her grandsons lit that past votive candle. Her daughter lit one for ingratitude for times present and the endearing memories we have of you that inspire and bring a smile to us even now. And then finally, her other daughter lit up one for a future candle that maybe perhaps there would be a reunion down the road. She loved flowers, so we did an exuberant bouquet of flowers that the family picked out of a bucket of flowers, and we kind of assembled and made an on-the-fly bouquet in honor of her. And then we listened, and as we did that, we had "Wind Beneath My Wings" by Bette Midler's playing. We had some pretty amazing remembrance times. Obviously makes it very personal, where people are able to talk about what their experience was and tribute their mom, their grandma, their friend. And in this instance, she had worked so much with the Raptors from Hot Quest that the CEO surprised everyone, including the funeral director, who had a visceral fear of raptors. Came in with actual eagles and hawks that had been special to Sheila, and that she had actually rescued and had worked with and trained to fly off and to come back on her arm. And then I did a takeaway that was very personal. I had recently vacationed on the Oregon coast in a little village called Neskowin, and it's at the base of the Salmon River estuary, and at the site of Proposal Rock, a big rock island with large trees, and the home of two beautiful, watchful bald eagles. The ocean view is spectacular, and it resonates with a very special, sacred vibe. And while there, I collected up black, smooth stones that were exposed when the ocean was at low tide. I gathered these up as gifts from the sea and thought, there's a reason you are collecting these, and it will come clear. And you know what? I think they were meant to serve as a remembrance for Sheila. So I offer you a stone in this laminated card in Sheila's memory that has a John Denver quote, "I'd be a poor man if I never saw an eagle fly," and this Navajo prayer, "I've been to the end of the earth, I've been to the end of the waters, I've been to the end of the sky, I've been to the end of the mountains, I have found none that are not my friends." So this was the card that was a refrigerator magnet that everybody ended up with as a personalized takeaway. Made final edits, included tributes from speakers, sent along pictures and a keepsake copy to her, to have to not her, us, but to her kids and to her mom, so that they would have it for their keeping and also to share along with friends. So I just thought, by giving you an example of one very personalized ceremony, that it might illuminate how that could create community, how that could bring people together, how it could get the brain lit up and saying, yes, that's the Sheila I know she was, all about wings. Thank you for saying that. those are what you hope for. So what does it feel like to lose your connection? May we choose to get the lights back on in our lives and let in the equivalents of water and of heat and internet. And I think we do that by linking together in a weave of transformative ceremony and shared story. It's time to connect back in and together to create community. Personalized ceremonies create community, and community matters. So, well, that's my pitch. That's my story of why I think. But I wanted to share with you, if you are all right, with my secret reason why I think personalized stories matter. And I tread in maybe a little dangerous territory, but I would share with you that if we are tuned to the truth of the law of thermodynamics, that no energy is lost, it's just moved into a different state or a different mode, then it follows that a person doesn't simply leave us and they're gone, but that their energy is somehow transformed. That is, moved into another locale other than the human one of filling up a handsome, just ask me, stardust container and animating it with green blue eyes and a radiant smile. But where do they go? One cliche we know to be true, they live on in our hearts. Yet physicists would have us to also understand that their energy is still with us. And perhaps the transformation that occurs in our death is a dispersal of our essence that can inhabit places it couldn't inhabit because of the fleshy temple we live in, and inhabit places in the hearts and in the minds and in the eyes of those who love us. And something of their essence is, and of course, I'm only speculating, is really in the room. So in physics, there is a scientifically demonstrated mystery of quantum entanglement, which I love, in which two particles having once interacted are forever inextricably connected by an unseen energy, each responding to the other precisely and instantaneously. In principle, you could place these two entangled particles on opposite ends of the galaxy, opposite ends of the universe, and still they would instantaneously respond, which totally violates everything that we understand about the limit of the speed of light. So this can only happen if everything is energetically connected. So perhaps the word love is just our everyday word for something understood by science to be entanglement. And we continue to pulse in an energetic synchrony with each other, even beyond when death do us part. As we are experiencing, when someone dies, death is a great mystery. And when it occurs, it leaves us no choice but to find a way through our grief to say goodbye. And life is a great mystery, and we are given just a short time to find a way to live our best life. And so a ceremony that acknowledges this essence might somehow appreciate the service, and if not, to acknowledge the continuing love connection that is so important to everyone that's in the room. So we are in the presence of the greatest mystery of all, greater than death, greater than life itself, and we call it love. How it can inform us, change us, transform us, and how it is immutable and forever. Perhaps it is an unseen energy that entangles us and keeps us connected, no matter how far apart or how transformed our energy might be. Its great mystery is that it can span both the mystery of our life and our death. And I believe that a personalized ceremony can energetically address the connection and connect the loved one to the community and the community to the loved one, and certainly the community to each other. This quote comes from Thucydides, who was a classical author and wrote the history of the Peloponnesian War, and perhaps he was on to what physicists are discovering today. He said, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. To craft and officiate ceremonies that speak to this weave, this essence that is woven into the lives of others, in my opinion, is the most sacred, humbling role I can imagine. To tell the story, to tell their story, to keep their story alive is such a privilege." Well, that's my secret path through why I think personalized ceremonies matter. And I can open it up to questions, or actually, I think we want to maybe hear from Valerie a little bit, who will talk to us about living memorials, and then maybe we can have questions back and forth. So,
thank you, Ben. So beautiful. If I wasn't a celebrant already, I would want to be one just from watching you for the last 35 minutes.
thanks. That
So
means a lot.
I wanted to talk about living memorials or living funerals or fare thee well ceremonies. I too am a life cycle celebrant, like Vanessa said in the beginning. I was always searching for a way to combine my end of life doula with being a life cycle celebrant. And so my passion is living funerals. So living funerals are for the terminally ill or advanced in age. And it's basically what Ben just explained. However, the guest of honor is there. And I interview the guest of honor, so it's their story. So that's part my end of life doula hat, is the interviewing and just capturing their life story. And the one that I did that's closest to my heart was for my cousin. And I had Fridays with Don. So Fridays with Don, I would meet with him via Zoom for a couple hours, and he would tell me his story. And I, meanwhile, am documenting his story. And then Don and I spoke for a couple months, but it was mostly because I just loved chatting with him also. And I just look forward to my Fridays with him. But then I had this ceremony for Don. They invited 75 of their friends, and we did a ceremony, much like Ben is explaining. And I told Don's story. The fulfilling part for me is that the guest of honor is there, and they are there to witness all of their friends listening to their story. And then at the end, I left it open for friends to come up and tell little snippets of memories they might have had with Dawn. So that happened. And then Dawn was always a tequila drinker. And whenever you go to Dawn's house, he offers you tequila. And so we poured tequila shots for everybody at the end. And he did his famous cheers in Spanish and stood there in front of everybody, and everybody did a shot with Dawn, everybody that wanted to, and everybody that was able to, eligible to. And so I just wanted to share that take on it as well. It's just the combination of end of life celebrant with my end of life doula work. So thank you, Ben. Thank you for letting me jump in on your wagon there.
Well, I think that's such a special gift, and I wish more people would opt or understand how valuable it can be for those who have received a diagnosis, have a death date, all of a sudden a due date on their life, and to hear maybe what their legacy was and how important they were to other people. How rich that is for them to be able to hear it with their fleshy ears, then be waving in the room maybe. And so anyway, wonderful.
Right.
Well, I'd love to open it up to any discussion or questions or feedback that anybody has.
That would be great. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing what you do. I love this idea about connection, and really just honoring that. And these celebrations are so healing and cathartic for people. And I just really, when I hear that, don't make a fuss over me. I'm like, oh no, but it's a gift you give to the people who are still living.
That's right.
So thank you both for sharing that. So yeah, now if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll just read them here if it's for Valerie or for Ben. I had a question, Ben. Have you ever run into a situation where somebody, friends or family, want to have a celebration, or maybe the family doesn't know the person very well, but they feel like they want to honor it in a way that maybe is not in a church or something? But how do you get to know the person if they weren't super close with their family? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, you can, yes, and certainly, um, I call it going on a scavenger hunt, and trying to unearth, what might be hidden in the room or in the next room over that maybe they didn't quite realize. I think everybody comes in with their own spark. It seems to me that I have 15 grandchildren, and every one of them were different in the womb, much less when they were born. And they came in with an essence and a spirit and a spark that was uniquely them. And I feel like I could at least get that out of the family, the moms, um, that they could give me the essence of that spark before they lost or got estranged. Certainly there's kids that lose their way and end up in drugs or prison or in lives that are not fulfilling their or at least what you thought was their calling. And so there are times where the family is been separated for so long that they don't really have any, I wouldn't say good memories, they just don't have any memories of the family. And so um, so that's kind of the, I don't, I keep reading I've got to stop reading the chat. I can't
That's all
comprehend
right.
read the
Valerie's got
chat.
that. No, I like what you said about everybody comes in with a spark, though, and it's your job to do the scavenger hunt, right? So
Yeah,
you're kind of
yeah,
a detective, kind of figuring out
that's right.
how to tell the story of what that spark was like in this person's life. I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a great. So you're going to read the chat. I don't have to
Sure.
read it. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, Ben says, this is from Nicole. I'm a celebrant and have been asked to put together a memorial ceremony for this coming weekend. What are your top questions to ask the family to get to know who the decedent was while they were earthside?
Yeah. Well, if the individual is in their 30s and below, or maybe 40s, I ask if they have tattoos, because I have found out that what people choose to brand themselves with gives a lot of insight into how they see themselves and what is important to them and what called out in them and what fired them up in life. So if they're younger, ask about tattoos. I like to try to get the people into the imaginal, and I certainly want to hear about the accomplishments, and I certainly want to hear about the all the what you might call obituary milestones. They were born here, they went to school here, they did this. But I certainly don't want that to be where I start telling their story. I want to get to their essence and really bring that to life. So that's why I did Sheila in the Wings. I did another one with who was who loved jellyfish, and they were bioluminescent, and she would light up the room when she walked in. And she was young and she died of an overdose, but she had a bioluminescent heart, and her name was Jillian, and so she called herself Jellyfish, and she loved these bioluminescent creatures, and that was my metaphor. So I'm always looking for something that is a symbol or a metaphor or a theme that can bring this person to life and not just plod through their life. And I sometimes will ask if they had a spirit animal, what would it be? You know, in Sheila's instance, I did a Pegasus. That was my overlay because she loved horses and she loved wings. But what would that spirit animal be? I always ask, what's a word or phrase that you would use to describe your loved one? What would a perfect day be for them? So that kind of gives you, lets them really fantasize sort of what a perfect day might be. And they'd wake up at 5 in the morning and go off on a meditative journey, or they'd sleep till noon and, start with their chips and salsa. I don't know, but whatever, but that can kind of give you, and then of course what they're most proud of. A lot of times that ends up being their kids, but if they don't have kids, maybe their accomplishments. What were they proud of? What do they see as their legacy? So those are some of the questions I'd be happy to share with you. um, I have a standard, I don't know, questionnaire that I work off of that is my prompts when I go into an interview and kind of scan it down, and I get down to what's their favorite color, what movies did they like, what books did they read, and all of those will reveal different things. So,
Thank you, Ben. The next question is, what was your most difficult instance in being a celebrant, and how did you handle it?
right. How long do you have, and how many do you want to hear about? No, there's always family dynamics that you are walking into, and you're walking into a room of grief, and you may be walking into a family that is estranged and trying to get through this. So, one that comes to mind was a family where a gentleman in his 40s passed, heart attack, I believe, if I'm remembering right. And his partner, who he hadn't married yet, used to be the best friend of his sister until they got together, the partner got together with her brother, and then they would never speak to each other ever again. And the family aligned with the daughter, and then over here is the partner who loved him and felt such a strong connection to him. But neither one had very nice things to say about the other, and were very accusatory of, he would not have died had she, kind of thing. And he would never have gotten in the condition he was had they not done this, and everything. I'm not a therapist, so I would always just say, well, it sounds like there's just so much going on here. But of course, what we've got to do is really focus on his essence and who he was, and to call that out and to really bring honor to that. Can you help me with that? So that was just trying to keep the conversation from devolving into a cycle of accusations and of injustices that had occurred over the years, or betrayals. The sister felt betrayed by her best friend who went off with her brother, kind of thing. So anyway, that's just an example of where it can get dicey or tricky. I've had where families said, don't talk to that sister, and we're going to do, it was the one of the daughters of the mother that passed, and my client was them. And then I get a call from the funeral director that says that so and so really wants you to talk to the mother, the other sister. And that's awkward. But anyway, you walk into situations like that. But at the end of the day, what you're there to do is to connect them to what they loved about him or her, and to honor their essence and the life that they created, and to bring maybe hopefully some reconciliation can even take place in the room as you find a way of bringing their life into the room in a way that both sides can tap into it and go for it. So anyway.
And I would venture to say that every family probably has something,
Yeah.
a little something or a big something, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is
The
too
next
true.
question, do you find that people are not open to having a living funeral because it is not something that people are used to?
I think that's for you.
And the answer is yes. However, I did a living funeral for a dear friend of mine for her dog. And so in that case, I didn't have that situation, obviously, but that was special and that was unique. Her dog had metastasized cancer and she knew he was going to be euthanized. And so we eulogized him, sweet boy, right there with her
Sweet.
family.
That's beautiful.
And yes, it is difficult because people, just like you were saying, people don't want to have a fuss over them. And so the example I gave, I have done living funerals and it was called a living funeral, but the example I gave for my cousin Don was his 88th birthday. So it was a big birthday, although he did have a terminal illness.
Right.
So
that's great.
Yeah, it's a play on words sometimes too.
Yeah, yeah. Good question.
And I put your email in there. I hope that's okay.
Oh, please. I'll share with you a image. Let's see. How would I do that? Wait, don't go away. I just thought I did this, the ceremony today for a gentleman who was 80, and he grew up in a family of 6 kids. The oldest kid, the parents made them choose an instrument, and at 2 he was playing the drums. And so whether he chose it or the instrument chose him, he had a lifelong life of drumming. But he was a sheet metal worker, and he actually made this drum set. This is all steel, and he sealed it together and did it in his 30s. This is down in his basement, and it has 3 cymbals on it, and it's a set of 4. And he played. He continued to play the drums at 80. He worked at Rocky Flats, and he got a brain cancer that is common to those who were exposed there, and it took him in his last 12 weeks of his life. But before that, he was very active. It wasn't like he had a debilitating disease until that really took hold, and it goes fast, I guess. But anyway, this was my metaphor, was that he beat to a one-of-a-kind, different drummer, and that rhythm was what caught him from the beginning. And he went to the Orange Bowl with the CU band, and he was in the Police band, and then he was in country western bands and jazz rock bands, and met his wife as a drummer. She married the drummer, and anyway. So back to Nicole's question, trying to find a symbol that can just reveal this person. So that was more than that he was a musician. He was a creator and a crafter, attention to detail. He seemed, I could never have created anything that would remotely resemble what he created, nor sound so acoustically amazing. So anyway, what's the next question? It's probably for Valerie. She's getting all the questions.
I'm not sure we have any more. Do we have any more questions for Ben? And so, Ben, do you go all over the state, or are you mostly in Denver, or where do you do your?
Yeah, I do the Front Range. Yeah, and I'm over the Rocky Mountain Celebrant, a Life Cycle Celebrant Alumni Association. So all of these are Celebrant graduates that went to the Celebrant Foundation and Institute and were certified. And it's a very rigorous course, set of courses. One, fundamentals, that's laid down in the principles of Joseph Campbell and Van Gennep and his stages of transition, and then specializing in funerals and weddings. And I also teach the funerals class, but more importantly is that if people are working with someone and are in need of a celebrant, I'd be happy to direct them to the celebrant directory and to match them up with someone that feels like that would be a good match for the family that they're working with. So
Great. And I have just a quick doula question. So if we were working with a family that was considering a celebration of life, do they already need to have like a venue in mind? Or do you, and Valerie, this is for you too. I mean, do you already have places that you kind of reach out to, or how does that work?
well, I'll let Valerie answer for her. The infamous dodge is it depends, and certainly finding a place that would be meaningful to them is the thing. So I've done ceremonies at Hudson Gardens, in backyards, in living rooms, in bedrooms, in churches, in funeral homes, and on mountain peaks and cemeteries. So, you can have a ceremony where the body is going to be laid to rest. You can have a ceremony without any remnants of the body, and it can be anywhere, and that's the beauty. I think in these days, I think we kind of got locked into there's only one way to honor our dead, and it didn't always lead us down the best choices. So I don't know how many caught, that this is Colorado is the second state to authorize body composting, and taking the body that gets put in a chrysalis and mixed in with biodegradable objects, and 4 to 6 months later comes out as this really rich soil. And I've had a privilege to be the celebrant for all four of the first um, people who opted for that, and have had really special ceremonies with them, and in returning their earth to the earth. It's very visceral and very beautiful, and it gives, what I've observed is the grief is a process, and this body composting is a process. And so at the beginning of the laying out of the body and placing it in and saying goodbye is at a certain point in your grief where you're in shock and it's unbelievable that you're here. And then 6 months later, there's some things that have shifted in you, and that body has changed. And there you are, putting it in a garden and mixing it with seeds, or doing a tree celebration. One family put in a mason jar, 100 mason jars of Andes soil, and then had everyone take that home with them with the label of, grow something in love, because he was such a loving individual. So the beautiful thing is that you can do all sorts of different honorings that are authentic to the person you're doing. The second person that had opted for this was an anesthesiologist and teacher at CU, an environmentalist, and he really was thrilled to find out in his last few weeks that this composting business had been authorized by Colorado, and signed himself up for it. And he has some really special property up by Staunton Park, and lives off by Elk Falls up above Conifer, and that's where he wanted to be laid out. And his family flew in from all over, and everybody, and we did a beautiful ceremony and did an altar and built in seeds. And I could go on about all the beautiful ceremonies that I've been a part of, but maybe we've already overstayed our welcome.
That's okay. We really appreciate it. This has been just so informative and so appreciated. I just value what you do so much, and you too, Valerie. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or anything else that we have? We're at 7:02 here, so I think we're about done.
I have a question for Ben.
Oh,
What's
yes.
your spirit animal?
That's a good question. It would be, I was chosen by a salamander. I'll have to tell you the story sometime.
Okay.
But I have a lifelong history with salamanders, and that would be not my choice, but they're my spirit animal.
All right.
I love that.
Stay tuned.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you, Ben, so much. His email is ben@essentialceremonies.com if you want to email him. And then Valerie, you put in our website there. So if you want to check out the website and contact either Valerie or Ben there. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time.
It's a
Thank you,
privilege,
Vanessa, for
everyone.
moderating. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Bye.
Ben,
Good
thank
night.
you.
Bye. Thank
Yeah.
you.